If you make this kind of music, drum and bass house, dubstep, glitch hop, space bass, I don't know. There's like infinite amount of genres, but if it's electronic and it's aggressive, then this video is definitely for you. But I'm thinking of taking it one step further and mixing and mastering your tracks live. Just send them in to me and I would get on live every Thursday at 7 p.m. PST. So if this video gets to 2,000 likes, I will start doing that and I will be doing it for free. I highly recommend leaving a like, subscribing, and all that good stuff. I'm not entirely sure if I want to send the mix and master back after I'm done, solely because the purpose of this video and the live streams I'll be doing isn't to get the best mix and master, it's to get a good mix and master. And a lot of people might be thinking, well, I want the best, why would I settle for just good? And it's because the best mix and masters are gate kept by being able to just pull off a good one first. And if you're watching this, your mixes and masters are not there yet, clearly, you know? So you have to make sure you understand the 80% before you start working on the 20%. Because of that, I'll be very quickly mixing and mastering on my live streams. I'm not going to be twisting knobs for 20 minutes. I will be looking at your track, and my goal is to have it mixed and mastered in 5 minutes, literally. So I don't think you should use that as your mix and master, but at least you'll have someone showing you exactly what they would do to your track. And I think that's so beneficial. If you think I should do that, leave a like. If we hit 2,000 likes, I will start doing that. With that being said, there's so many ways to get a good clean mix and master. This video will not be giving you the cleanest mix and master, but it's going to show you how the pros do it. Many people in our industry have been quietly turning away from the old school traditional approach of mixing and mastering, which is having effects on effects on effects and essentially spreading out the amount of effects you do in your processing. So you do a little bit on the track, more on the group, a little more on the bigger groups, on the mix bus, and on the master. And the idea is if you spread out the amount of compression, saturation, and other effects throughout your track, then it'll come out better that way, which can be true. There's so many ways to achieve a good mix, but that way is way more complicated. It can be genre specific, and it's just not ideal for a beginner. If you're a beginner, you don't know what compression and saturation really sounds like. You haven't had those thousands of hours of playing with those effects. So it's just not ideal. This method is by far the best method for you because it's simple. You just make sure the levels are right. You create your sound. You make sure the sound sounds like you want it to sound. And then you stop all the processing. You just make it loud enough and you run into a clipper. And it works phenomenal for heavy electronic music because heavy electronic music welcomes distortion and the squishiness and non-perfect sounding aspects when you're running your track into some kind of clipper, limiter, or something that will eventually distort how it sounds. Also, what I love about this method is that you don't need any plugins outside of just stock plugins. There's so much misunderstanding about what happens if you are in the red, and essentially your sounds get digitally clipped at a certain point. If you're redlining your master in Ableton, it will literally clip your track, and the harder you push into that, the more it will introduce artifacts, which may be welcomed. They may not. I think most people would agree that if you push it too much, it's not going to sound good. And that's just a thought. That's just an opinion. But the truth is, it works. You don't need a really, really nice clipper, especially if you're a beginner. But I'm not the only one saying this. There's so many artists that I respect that have told me this off camera. There's examples on camera.
And I did use a lot of limiting and clipping in my tracks to limit the dynamic range, but not a compressor. And let me explain why. For my kind of music, I feel like clipping and limiting, which is more drastic than compression, sounds better for my kind of stuff. And in this day and age, where modern music production is literally just dragging already compressed samples into your project, I often don't feel like there's a need to compress. Now, if you watched any of my production videos back in the day, there would be a lot of group compression added, compression on the drum group, compression on the bass group, compression on pretty much everything. And I actually didn't do that at all anymore. I feel like just adding a clipper at the end of the group sounds a lot better.
Is running no master chain and driving your song far into the red really the way to go when it comes to mixing and mastering music? Well, let's talk about it. I got 2 beats here, so let me play that for you. And this one's in 32-bit. I don't currently have anything on the master chain. So yeah, let's hear it. Far into the red. Surprisingly, sounds perfect, which is crazy, right? You would think it would sound absolutely awful. So what happens when we bounce it to 24? Well, guess what? There's no more overs. All that gets sliced off. And what is that? That's hard clipping, my friends. Whether we like it or not, it ends up getting hard clipped.
But one thing's for sure, after the drama from my last 2 videos, I've had so many people reach out to me and say, hey, I cannot get a mix to sound good. I can't hit anywhere close to -5 LUFS without it sounding absolutely terrible, or my mixes are just so thin, blah, blah, blah. And I've actually gone online with these people and looked at their project, and it's always the same story. A million plugins on every single track, on the group, on the bigger group, on the mix bus, and on the master. And it's step 1 is deleting everything, literally. So just to close off on why this mixing and mastering tutorial, in my opinion, is so much better than every other one that you've seen, or for sure that I've seen, is not only because it's simple, but because it makes sure it prioritizes you hitting the metrics you're looking for. I think a big thing is that a lot of people don't know what to look for. They're kind of confused. Like Span is a phenomenal plugin, but they don't know what settings to use, for example. So we're first going to test your sound system using a sine wave to see what you're not hearing and where you're deficient in. For me, I will say this, it took me way too long to hit -5, 6, or 7 LUFS comfortably. I'm truly disgusted at how long it took, and it was all because I had a million plugins. Like I would push to -6, 7, and my track would just sound terrible, and that does not happen to me anymore. I can hit -2 to 3 LUFS and it sounds clean-ish. It's totally fine. Now, with that being said, I'm not trying to make the cleanest music out there. So my music already has several elements playing at the same time. So when you introduce a little bit of distortion, it's not as obvious and it doesn't stick out in the track as much. But anyway, so final disclaimers, you don't have to do it this way, but I do recommend you do it this way. This video is geared towards ideally beginners, but the truth is any skill level uses this technique for specifically heavy electronic music. A lot of people in the comments are like, bro, why should we listen to you? You're a nobody. And yeah, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not Subtronics, that's for sure, right? But I do have a couple songs out on pretty decently sized labels. I would say these are pretty big labels, to be honest. They throw festivals, they're well known. They have some of the biggest artists in the scene that have released tracks on their label. So you should check out Lit Roosta. I got another one coming out on Gravitas Recordings, and soon Cyclops Records, because a few days ago was blessed with the most insane of notifications. And when I saw that Subtronics followed me, I was just through the roof. And it kind of made sense because I sent it to his label. I wanted to be released on his label. And then, as soon as he commented, his label reached out and they said they wanted to sign it. And I teased this song in my last video. I don't know if you remembered, but what was absolutely crazy, I think what was shocking really, is that he then proceeded to post on Threads this message. I think what hit the hardest for me is the fact that everyone that's ever heard my music really is someone that knows me. Like personally, they meet me first. So whenever they hear my music, the likelihood of them being nice about it is just skyrocketed because they don't want to be mean. Like they know who made it, and so it completely changes how it sounds to them. But Subtronics has never met me. He doesn't even know what I look like. He doesn't know I have a YouTube channel. And for him to even acknowledge my track and comment, hey, yo, and then right away post online that his favorite thing about running a label is that people with 200 followers, which at the time of this recording, I'm still at 200, so go to SoundCloud. But people with such small followings are smoking the scene like salmon. One more time. But are smoking the scene like salmon is just crazy. And don't get me wrong, it is a great track. Like I'm kind of not shocked in a way. When I sent it to I literally sent them setting like, yo, this is by far my best work. Like this is crazy. But yeah, all this to say, you shouldn't fear in at least listening to what I have to say. You should never take what I have to say at face value. You should always test it. But I think just based off of the things I just said, I have infinitely more credit than the majority of YouTubers that post these tutorials. They have better editing, better cameras than me, but I'm so like annoyed, honestly, and tired of going to their SoundCloud SoundCloud and their Spotify and seeing no songs or just very generic songs that AI is already pretty much done. But yeah, that's been my experiences watching mixing and mastering tutorials. And then once they finally get into it, you hear the music and you're like, oh yeah, this is like the most acoustic of guitar genres. It has nothing to do with heavy bass, you know. Or they will be doing an EDM, super generic mixing and mastering tutorial, but they're making super generic EDM. Like literally it's so decentralized, this corporate style of EDM, that you can go to Fiverr and someone will literally make the track, mix and master it pretty well for you like that for $5. By the way, in today's video, I'm going to be using the track that Subtronic said is really good and gave me like the biggest compliment ever. It's not like a track breakdown, but it kind of is, because you'll see exactly what it looks like. You're going to see how I grouped everything together, how I mixed and mastered it. And that's literally what I sent to Subtronics, who is a huge artist, like massive, probably one of the biggest in the scene. If that was good enough for him, then dude, you really need to stop assuming things and just do it this way. You know what I mean? This is clearly the way, man. So let's jump into it. Let's see, how do you mix and master? What do you start with? Step one is going to be making sure that you have a good listening environment. And we're going to do a sine sweep test right now. I'm going to start at 5,000 hertz and I'm going to sweep down all the way to 20 hertz. Around 50, 40, your earbuds or your sound system, your room should shake. You should feel something. The truth is, in today's day and age, there's so many earbuds, wired headphones, and most sound systems. Like you can get your hands on a sub for not too expensive. So you don't have to go into the mixing and mastering world blind completely. And I can't stress how important it is to not only see what you're doing as a beginner, have span, have the imager, and have everything, and see the LUFS and the loudness you're hitting, but also to be able to hear it. Like you have to be able to understand what you're doing, and you can't if you don't hear those frequencies. So here's the test. Let's find out, how cooked you are, basically. Generally, you want 6 different groups. You want a kick and snare group that will act as a trigger for a sidechain with whatever you want to sidechain. Because sometimes I sidechain melodic elements, sometimes I don't. Most times I sidechain like the bass. I don't want to sound like I don't, or the sub. But if you choose not to, then you might not. There's no rules. So there's going to be the kick and snare group. There's going to be a sidechain group with everything that you want to sidechain inside. Within it, you'll most likely want a sub track, like a track that's just your sub, to have total control, which you don't have to do this. In fact, the producer that I respect the most on this planet, whenever I've seen him make music, he doesn't do that. He doesn't have a dedicated sub. So that's just proof right there that you don't need it. But I like to. It gives me full control and I get to really know what to do with it. After the sub track, there is a bass track, and that's not limited to just frequencies in a certain range. This is like all the frequencies minus the sub. This group will always, for me, have some kind of really sharp low cut so that the sub is excluded, or maybe even the sub and its next harmonic are excluded. They're cut off. But in this group, this is where you might want to do some pre-mixing before it hits your clipper. That's once again not fully required. And in here you would have everything, your womps and your, dirty part of your 808 and anything that's bassy. After this group, there's going to be a effects risers and ear candy group that you could also include inside outside of the bass group because you're processing on your bass group. You know, you might be adding a distortion to every bass sound. And so if you include your ear candy in that group, the ear candy is going to share sonic similarities due to the fact that it's being passed through the same type of distortion than your bass sounds. So it will help make it glue together and more tubey. Then there's the melodic group, which is, you don't have to do these, but I like to make all of my melodic elements, for example, the blue color. So they may be outside of the sidechain group, they might be inside, kind of depends on the vibe. And don't worry, I know I'm speaking in a lot of generalized terms, so I will be telling you what I think you should do. And really, that is all based on simplicity right now. You just need to pump out 50 to 100 tracks using the simplest and most effective method before you level up. I think that's what's best for you. But if you want to force shortcuts, go ahead. You never know, they might work, you know? And the final group I would say is the vocals group, you know, where anything that is not so much ear candy, so not like an echoed vocal that's used as an atmospherics element, that would go in my effects and risers group personally. But anything that's an actual vocal, like a singer. The next big thing is you have to be able to monitor stereo width, how loud you are, like LUFS, and your full frequency range. And it took me too long to realize that I was not looking at the right settings on span. As far as LUFS and the loudness war, I think that it's a safe bet to hit anywhere between -7 to -3 LUFS. With that being said, I've hit -2 before, I've hit -8. You know, people aren't that mad about it. Like that difference, it's the LUFS is more of like how squished do you want your track to sound, and does it fit the vibe that you're trying to emit? You know, so that's what really matters here. The next step is to decide if you want to use a clipper or if you just want to redline your DAW. And to be completely honest, I would opt out for redlining the DAW for two main reasons. One is to kind of shed off all this fear about it and to really submit to letting go of those assumptions you've had up to now. Also, it's, you know, like training with weights on. So if you can get really nice mixes just redlining your DAW, not only is it free, but whenever you do use a high quality clipper, it's like you're taking the weights off. You are like built different compared to the version of you that just went straight for the easier route. And if not, just look around for a quality clipper that everyone recommends. Everyone's talking about newfangled Saturate, so feel free to go for that one. That's the one I use. I prefer bass sounds over drum sounds, and that's why I solo the bass sound group and I basically make it as loud as possible and I ram it into the clipper. And after that, I will introduce the sub and kind of level them out to where at the very loudest, I'm getting the amount of distortion I want, if any, for how much I'm running those two groups into the clipper. After that, I now add just the kick and snare. And if you get the sidechain right, which very important, sidechain is way over discussed. You should get, in my opinion, a volume-based sidechain, and it should be one that's very simple. Like ideally using almost stock plugins would be great. And then the most important rule is to always test your sidechain. Do not trust that it's doing its thing. LFO tool was screwing me for years. I had no idea that there was this weird latency until finally, like 3 years in, I was like, I'm going to test this sidechain and see, you know, like if it works or not. And it wasn't at all. And that's why my track sounded weird. It's because the sidechain was off. So my entire sidechain was just like being moved over. It was late basically. There was this like 200 millisecond latency. It was like super obvious. So yeah, don't trust your sidechain. Always test it. Use a volume base. Don't compress. I mean, you can do whatever you want. All right. Like Virtual Riot is doing ring mods, sidechaining, you know, like there's no rules, but I think that if you want a clean mix, then definitely have the volume lower. I like to use GM Audio Ducker. I don't know how I got it. I just happened to be in one of my folders one day. And then I think I recently checked and you do have to buy it now to have it. So I don't know if I bought it, if someone gave it to me, how it worked. But what I love about it is that it's super simple. It does exactly what it's supposed to be doing and it works great. So now that you have your kick and snare at the loudness you want in parallel with your bass and your sub, that's the most important in your track, in heavy electronic music. So now you should be hitting like -6 LUFS at least with just those two elements. And the rest is just bringing it up to taste. Stop like cutting things and making room for things just because like, oh, I see that there's a lot of elements in the mids or in the low mids. So I'm going to cut them because I see it and I want to make room for my bass sounds. Don't do it like that. In fact, it's always best. I'm becoming a purist almost in this department. It's always best to do nothing unless the change is like more than 30% noticeable. If it's like a 20% change, then like if it doesn't transform and achieve what you want enough, like it kind of does, but not really, the answer is just to not do it every time. That's just worked for me. As you dial in all the other elements, your vocals, your ear candy and everything up to the volume for your drop, because all this is for the drop, right? And we're going to start the mixing and mastering process with the drop. So as you raise everything up to its volume, understand that future you is going to cringe at your track. So it's not that big of a deal. Like the track you're making now is not the big banger that's going to blow you up and give you whatever you want, whether that's streams, money, attention, respect, or just self like fulfillment that you are good at what you do. Like this track ain't it, man. It's not going to be for a while probably. So just focus on learning how to do it and doing a decent job, and then just move on and do that again and again and again and again. And little by little, you're going to level up a lot, man. Like I wish I got to where you're going to get as fast as you're going to get there. Your goal is to hit all the metrics and do your best with the balance. That's your goal right now. You just hit the LUFS you want. Your track looks nice and wide. It sounds decent and you did your best. Boom. You don't want to do anything else. Generally, you want your track to sound good when you go to mono, although that's becoming less and less important with time, but it's still something you should check. So just make sure that your track sounds relatively the same in mono. There will be things that go out and that's totally fine, but your main elements I think should sound very, very similar, whether they're stereo or not. Unfortunately, as you get more experimental with bass music, that does become very limiting to ensure complete mono compatibility, although I did make an awesome video about that. But yeah, it's a trade-off, man. In the end of the day, if your track's not meant to be played in mono, then it's just not meant to be played in mono. And that's okay. It's an artistic choice. And lastly, the most important is just do for now. And if you're not happy with the final result, let future you tackle it, because future you will have accumulated more knowledge over the weeks, months, or even years of continuing to produce. And future you will, like that, know what to fix. And it's like almost annoying. I will look at tracks from 4 years ago and be like, oh yeah, it's this, and that. Boom, done. Like that thing that took me weeks and months I kept working on the same track, I fixed it in like 3.5 seconds. So don't be afraid to just say, you know what, I've been trying for 2 to 3 days on this track. I love this track, but I just couldn't lock it in. I'll see you in a couple months, maybe a couple years. That's just how the game goes, man. So let's look at my project now and see how I applied everything. You'll see that some of the rules I followed, some I didn't. So we're looking at Monkey Mind. This is the track I sent to Subtronics, and I feel like it's a pretty good example of what I talked about in this video. And so let's kind of start with what I said at the beginning. First of all, in the master, we'll see that we have Span, Stereo Tool, and Insight. And those three plugins are helping me see what exactly I'm doing. So if we're playing the drop, so it's a pretty loud track. We're hitting around -4 LUFS to -5 throughout the drop. And we're seeing that it's quite bass heavy, but the predominant frequency is still the loudest here, which is important. And it's nice and wide. Pretty crazy track. Starting with the bass group, because that's what I mentioned when I was explaining how I think you should mix. Here are all the bass sounds in the track. And essentially, I'm having them all go through OTT because I reached for the OTT out of laziness, because I wanted the high end and the mids and the lows of the bass sounds to kind of be hitting around the same area. And OTT pushes the sounds that are too quiet up to a certain volume and reduces sounds that are too loud down to a certain volume. So it kind of provides this like mix down, for lack of a better word, and ensures every sound that you throw into it is going to be hitting close to the same area. That's why I used OTT. You could use it for that reason, or you could just use it for the way it sounds, but either way. Then I added some distortion, This right here, I used it in drop 2 for an additional mix down, essentially. And lastly, you'll see that I cut everything below 54 hertz because you can't hear this area, so it doesn't matter. I'm just playing. It's because there's a dedicated sub, which is right here. So that's the bass group. Here's the sub. In this case, the sub is, yeah, it's just a sine wave. So there's actually no noise on it. It's just a clean sine that is around 30 hertz for the fundamental frequency of the song, I guess. I talked about this circular type of sub sine wave in one of my previous videos, so you can go look at it there. If this triggers you, then I'm extra happy about it. Then you'll see that I decided to include these more melodic instrumental elements in the sidechain group, and this is just some kind of like distant reverbed sine wave. This is a bell sound that I just added reverb to, and these are tons of effects. As you'll see, I opted out to remove this womp sound from the basses because it just didn't sound good in it. So this is a great example of how, you know, you can break your own rules, and really there are no rules as long as it sounds good. As far as sidechaining, I use GM Audio Ducker, and it's all going to this kick and snare group where it's just a kick and a snare. I was fully ready to just self-release this and move on. And that's kind of a big point I want to get across, is that the song that's going to either blow you up or, you know, level you up and bring a lot of light to you as a producer might just be a song that you just kind of do in literally a day or two, which is what happened here for me. And you don't think it's going to have that much impact, but it will. And that's just how it goes. Don't seek the rewards or the results. Just put in the work. Keep your head low. Don't listen to people that just clown on you for no reason, and you will get wherever you want to be. So, and then here's a quick example of how you can really break your rules. So in this one, I don't have a dedicated sub. Just let me check actually. Yeah, just have a whole bunch of saw waves that go into, there you go, just a good old OTT, and then have it be loud enough, and that's it. You see how, like, I get the sound that I want. Here's what it sounds like, by the way. Super fat. This is a collab with my friend Ansu that I'm still working on. It's not done yet, but notice that I'll get the sound that I want, and it'll sound like I want it to sound, and then once I'm done with all the processing, I will just make it loud enough. It's zeroed out here. It's zeroed out here. Nothing gets added, and then it goes straight into that. See what I mean? So that's the idea. And lastly, what I mean by testing your sidechain is you want to record your sidechain group. And when you record it, you'll see the moments that your sidechain is being activated. And that will show you that it's being used correctly. So when I had LFO tool, basically my sidechain would say that it would visually look good on LFO tool, but it'd be lying because there would be information bleeding here where it's supposed to duck down and go back up. So yeah, that's what I mean by test your sidechain, is look at the sample and make sure that it looks nice. And what I like to do is I like to sample my kink and snare as well, so I can see at what point the kick bleeds, at what point the kick ends, and at what point the bass starts coming in. And you want some kind of like cross fading between the two. So yeah, definitely leave a like if you want me to mix and master your track live in front of you. Seeing it for yourself is really going to help. All right, guys, as usual, a quick update on the retreats. Fortunately, my contractor kind of like vanished in the beginning of August. I was trying to do my next one in September. There's still a good amount of stuff to fix out here. So the way I want this to go is I want things to be done properly. I want to send pictures to whoever is looking to actually join and with a schedule and everything. And after that is when I would actually start like booking people. But I'm super excited to get them started. I think that I just need another month or two. It kind of depends on when my contractor comes back and just finishes the job, you know? So, if you're a contractor and you live anywhere near Los Angeles or like an hour and a half away, please let me know. Like, just reach out like in the DMs and let's definitely talk, because I definitely need someone to help me finish out this property. So right now I could host one right now. I just want it to look ready for y'all. So that's kind of why we're holding out on the music retreat stuff. Please follow me on all socials. Definitely listen to my music on Spotify and SoundCloud, and definitely leave a like for this video if you want me to go live and mix and master your music every Thursday or most Thursdays at 7 p.m. PST. Cool. All right, take care, guys.